From missing person cases to true crime stories that will give you chills, these unexplained mysteries have baffled experts and continue to remain unsolved years later. Number 5. For more than 12 years, one of the most evil criminals throughout true crime history targeted northeast Italy in what has become one of the country's creepiest unexplained mysteries. Baffled law enforcement experts have been unable to explain this cold case decades later. In 1994, an unidentified individual began rigging devices at random across the North Italian countryside. The criminal could booby-trap anything from umbrellas to pens, mayonnaise and tomato containers, and on one occasion even Easter eggs. The more normal-looking the item, the better the trap it would become in this creepy mystery. When someone would unscrew a jar, for example, the trap was sprung. Sometimes they would absent-mindedly kick an object on the ground while walking down the street and get taken out. The criminal once rigged an electric candle of a church, resulting in 3 people going to the hospital. Examining the evidence left behind each crime scene only made the investigators more puzzled and horrified each time. They have since described these dark and disturbing events as, quote, the work of a psychopath. Between 1994 and 2006, more than 30 of these devices permanently changed the lives of 20 individuals. At one point, investigators brought to trial a 49-year-old engineer who they felt had the know-how and the will to commit these heinous horror stories. But the scariest and most unbelievable moments of this unsolved case were yet to come. The evidence supposedly connecting the engineer to these cases was a pair of scissors that investigators claimed had been used to create the devices. Some details of the case have not been released to the public, and exactly how this connection was made is unknown. The scissors most likely contained trace residue of a powder used to make the device. The defense was appealing on the grounds of evidence tampering. Exactly how is unknown, but in the middle of these legal proceedings, the trial suddenly came to an unexpected ending. The engineer was soon released because while he was still in custody appealing his charges, the attacks began anew. The cold case has never been solved and remains a chilling mystery. Number 4. On October 1st, 1993, 25-year-old Kevin was last seen at a friend's home in North Fargo, working on a remodeling project. The North Dakota home was known as a local party spot where people would come and go throughout the day. Before he went missing, Kevin was last seen leaving the home around 1 a.m. He'd mentioned wanting to walk to his brother's apartment in nearby Moorhead, Minnesota, a distance of not more than a mile or two. Nearly 30 years later, Kevin's sister, Michelle, continues to be one of the most vocal advocates in the still unsolved mystery of his disappearance. He was not reported missing until a few days later when he failed to check in with family, and she believes individuals who were at the party that night may know more than they are saying. There have been rumors that Kevin got into a fight at the house, and Michelle thinks he may have never left. For many years, investigators believed that Kevin might have disappeared as a way to start a new life. Because of this, his case may not have been given the same priority as other active investigations. However, since 1993, this unexplained mystery has been reopened by cold case investigators at least 3 times. Criminal foul play is now expected. Investigators at the Fargo Police Department are looking to speak with anyone who can explain the unsolved mystery that happened at 1118 11th Street North in Fargo on the night of October 1st, 1993. The department can be reached at 701-241-1405. Number 3. In the early 1980s, Shergar was one of the most famous racehorses in the world after a 1981 Epsom Derby victory by a large margin. The stud was soon retired and bred for mares that sold for up to $120,000 each, making the animal quite profitable. On the evening of February 8, 1983, around 10 masked men drove up to the home of the Fitzgerald family, who ran the ranch in Ireland where Shergar was kept. Two of the intruders forced Jim Fitzgerald to move Shergar to their trailer. The rest of the group kidnapped his family. In a dark and disturbing true story, the crime took a morbid twist when they told Jim that he could not contact the police without losing his family. After driving him around the countryside for 3 hours to keep him distracted, they finally released a terrified man and kept his horse. Jim first called the horse's manager as well as his vet before finally being convinced to call the police more than 8 hours later. By that time, the horse thieves had already asked for $2 million in ransom. Investigators prompted Jim to ask for evidence that Shergar was still alive. He was sent several Polaroid pictures of the horse, along with a daily newspaper to verify the current date. Investigators told him to refuse to accept this as enough proof. The thieves ultimately cut off contact. Everyone, including the IRA, was interviewed, but criminal investigators were unable to solve the ransom case. If the theory about the IRA taking the horse is true, then Shergar met an unexpected ending at the end of a barrel. Others say it was the result of an organized crime ring run by a mafia family. Whatever the case may be, people responsible for this famous unsolved missing horse mystery have never been brought to justice. Number 2. Opal Marie Parsons, aged 81, lived at home with her daughter in Las Vegas. Despite her advanced age, Opal was in excellent health. On the morning of August 30th, 2007, she was going to have lunch at 12:30 with friends when she never arrived and became a creepy mystery instead. When her daughter returned home at 2 in the afternoon, she found the TV and the lights on at the house, but her mother was missing. Also missing was Opal's purse, but her van, which she had planned to drive to lunch, was still home. The door to the house was unlocked with the keys in the door, and there was no note. Right away, the case presented a number of unexplained mysteries to investigators. Why or how had she left without her car? In addition, why were the keys left in the front door? Investigators soon discovered that her debit card had been used at an ATM machine inside of a casino the day after she went missing. The person caught on surveillance footage using the debit card was not Opal. Her missing driver's license and social security card were later found on the floor near a casino exit. On September 8th, 9 days after Opal's mysterious disappearance, police announced they had identified the individual using the elderly woman's card. According to investigators, the unidentified man claimed to have found Opal's purse in a trash bin near the casino. He had no idea who she was and had never been to her house. His story checked out, and he's not a suspect in her mysterious missing person case. To this day, baffled experts have not found any leads as to Opal's whereabouts. Their primary theory is that an individual who Opal knew came to the home that morning, causing her to open the door of her own free will. The person then either abducted Opal or convinced her to come with them. There's also no suspected motive in the crime. Opal was well liked in the community, and she was not well off, living primarily off of Social Security income. Her children continue to look for her, and her case remains open with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Anyone with information regarding the disappearance of Opal Parsons can call 702-828-2907. Number 1. Ludger Bellinger was a mechanic with a hunting background who had a family in Washington, Maine. On November 25, 1975, Ludger, his wife Linda, and his brother John all went hunting in the early morning. Hours later, Ludger was dropped off about a half-mile from his home. He told Linda he wanted to do some more hunting, and that he would be found back at the house in time to drive her to work around noon. Linda and John began searching for him that afternoon because he still hadn't returned. Game wardens and state police soon joined the search for the missing person in the woods. Footprints were discovered along a snowy ridge, as well as 2 spent rifle cartridges. They also found the innards of a deer, but both the hunter and the buck were inexplicably missing. They followed drag marks about a quarter mile to a nearby access road, where the unexplained mystery became even scarier. Tire tracks and footprints indicated that 2 men had abducted Ludger along his quarry and drove away. At the scene of the crime was a receipt from a mechanic's garage from earlier in the day. Investigators paid the shop owner a visit the following morning and were told that 2 men driving a green 1965 Buick Special had visited his shop and demanded instant service on a leaky radiator. When the owner told the men he couldn't help, they left. Around 2 p.m., the men returned rowdy and belligerent, demanding service. The mechanics did the best they could and the pair drove off. The mechanic identified the 2 criminal suspects as David Seveningson and Danny Collins. Crime detectives interviewed both David and Danny for information about the hunter's unexplained disappearance. Both denied involvement. However, police observed a recently cleaned hunting weapon, as well as a package of deer meat in the freezer at David's house. Crime detectives did not think his story was true because he said he'd not gone out into the woods to do any hunting. By the time they returned with a warrant to investigate further, the house had allegedly been cleaned of all potential crime scene evidence. On November 28th, the green Buick was found with the rear seat and floor mats both completely missing. There was a strong smell of cleaner in the car's back seat and trunk. Police were unable to obtain any evidence from the vehicle. David Seveningson would pass away in 1976 at home less than a year after Ludger's disappearance. The last major break in the case was made in 1977, when one of Danny's friends told investigators that Danny and David had lured Ludger into the car with the intent of stealing the deer. When Ludger refused to give up the deer, Danny used the hunter's own weapon on him. Although Danny Collins still lives in Maine, he refuses to speak on Ludger's case. Linda, Ludger's widow, still mourns her husband. It's been 47 years since he went missing. His family continues to post regular updates on a Facebook page that they run in his honor, entitled Justice for Ludger Bellinger. The case is still open with the Maine State Police, and anyone with information is encouraged to call 207-624-7143. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.